So welcome to the Always Developing Leader podcast. And I am so grateful to be sitting here today with not just a friend, but just a mentor, a spiritual guider, amazing person. Julie Underwood. She is the CEO, the founder, the one and only Focus for Leaders. And she is joining us today, and I am just so thrilled to be sitting down with her. We've been talking for the last hour and a half or so, and gosh, she's amazing. So embracing 2024, I'm going to let Julie talk a little bit about herself and let her introduce herself and what she does.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity, JJ. And we are so much more than just friends. And I appreciate you so much. And you have bolstered and inspired me on my journey as a solopreneur. And I am, like JJ said, the founder of Focus for Leaders. And it's a leadership coaching, training, and development. I love working with people. I'm a John Maxwell certified trainer. And that's where my passion for leadership started, is using John Maxwell's materials to train my students when I was a career educator. And I have since retired and refired. I love that. As CEO of Focus for Leaders. And now it's my mission to add value to people by helping them feel inspired that they are leaders, because John Maxwell defines leadership as influence, nothing more and nothing less. And I feel like, especially I'm a person of faith, and I feel like as a Christian, it is my role and the role of other people who are people of faith to lead and to set a good example and to be leaders. And so that's where my passion comes from. And I love what I'm getting the opportunity to do. It's so much fun. And doing another podcast with JJ is my sheer joy, because we've done one together before. And it's just so fun now that he has this amazing business, Always Developing Leader, that I get to be on his podcast and we get to have a great conversation about leadership, because we have them all the time. Off camera and not on podcasts, but we have them all the time. And I always leave inspired and just enthusiastic about a new endeavor or whatever we've talked about. I just go away like, oh, this is so cool. I'm so glad I got to talk to JJ about that.
Yeah, well, that's what it's about, right? It's about inspiring each other, and it's about lifting each other up and making sure that we're succeeding, because it can be so lonely. You know, being a solopreneur, entrepreneur in general, it can get lonely. And so having someone, and you've been that person for me, thank the Lord that you've been there, because I don't know what I'd do by myself. It gets lonely.
It's true. And, you have been that for me, because I decided to start this business, here in Twin Falls, Idaho, and try and get a vision for the bigger, worldwide community that we can be a part of. And you were the first person who kind of came alongside and said, yes, this is something that people need to know and want to know. And that really kept me going when it was a struggle and felt like I was pushing a big boulder uphill. So that was super helpful, and I appreciate it. And I'm glad that we're here to talk about embracing 2024, because I think each new year brings new challenges and new opportunities. And I think sometimes as a goal setter and goal pursuer, it can be overwhelming. And I think sometimes we beat ourselves up as high achieving and high performance individuals. The psychology says, and brain research and all of the psychological research says, that we tend to be more hard on ourselves, and that we beat ourselves up. And we see the glass, as far as ourselves, I think not as far as the world, but as far as ourselves, we see the glass half empty instead of half full.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, oh, I set all these goals last year, and here's what I didn't do, and I didn't, and I only, and I blah, 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 blah. And I think that can get us down going into a new year. I think there's a lot of kind of apprehension and some anxiety going into a new year. So I love the title for this podcast, Embracing 2024, because I think that's how we need to approach it. We need to embrace the future and cast vision for it, for ourselves and for others, for the clients that we're working with and the people that are listening to us, and, in our sphere of influence.
Yes.
And so I think it's so important that we take the stance of, I'm going to embrace a new year. I'm not going to dread it, and I'm not going to look at my goals from last year and beat myself up. I'm going to embrace it and go forward.
Yeah. I love this topic, and I'm so glad we're talking about it as well, because on the podcast we did previously, you had mentioned something about a river and sitting in a raft. And are you rowing upstream? Are you going with the current? What are you doing? And I think that if we are not, going into a new year is such a prime time for us to be able to really be intentional and say, hey, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to do better this year. I'm going to implement these habits. This is a prime time to do it. But I'll tell you what, Julie, you can do this any time of the year, and you should be. It's something you should be embracing every day, and not just 2024, every day.
It's true. And I love that you've made it the theme of your Always Developing Leader intentionality, because what I talked about in our earlier podcast was about stopping the drift.
Yes.
Because no one ever drifts to the life that they want. No one ever drifts to their greatest successful moment. I mean,
Their pinnacle.
Yeah, you don't drift to finishing a marathon or running a half marathon.
No.
You don't drift to great achievement. You set an intention, and then you stage that with goals that are incremental, that move you forward, and you find people that you surround yourself with that keep you inspired and motivated, moving forward and growing and challenged. And I think that's the only way that you stop the drift. And I think, like you said, I mean, I think the whole world thinks about stopping the drift and being intentional when we come to this season at the end of the year where we're reflecting back and looking into a new year.
Yeah.
So it's like a perfect storm, perfect moment to be intentional. But like you said, I mean, on one of the podcasts I listened to, they talked about, someone just picked January 1st out of the year,
Like, this is the first,
whole calendar, and just said, this is the beginning of a new
They were struggling. They were going through one of those hard seasons.
every day.
They're like, okay, we got to stop this. So like, this month is coming to an end. January 1st is it, baby. That's when we're making a change. And it's stuck.
It's completely arbitrary.
Yeah.
But we can say February 1st. We could say
December
1st.
15th. Yeah.
December 15th. Every day is a new trip around the globe, a new trip around the sun.
Yes.
And so anytime we can stop it. I mean, they decided that, we've done a full rotation around the sun, I guess, and don't quote me on this. I'm not an astrologer.
You're fooling me.
Yeah, I'm not an
It's like,
astronomer.
this is really interesting.
Yeah, this is so interesting.
Wow, you're so smart.
But anytime, like you said, we can stop and decide, I'm going to be intentional and I'm going to create the life I want for myself.
Yes.
And I'm going to do it by design.
Yes.
And I'm going to get a clear vision of who I want to become in the future.
Right.
Because I think that's so important. I mean, we all talk about goals and struggling with goals. And I think one of the things John Maxwell talks about is how he shifted from a goal-focused person to a growth-focused person.
Ooh, I love that.
And I know that James Clear has spoke about it's our trajectory.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get so hung up on goals.
Well, it's like, I didn't get this done. I didn't get
I
that.
know, yeah. And we set a goal, and if we don't achieve it, it's like doom
done.
and gloom,
Yeah.
and woe is me, I'm a failure, I'm an epic fail. But one time when I was thinking about dieting, and I heard a nutritionist on YouTube or something was talking about it, and she said, if you eat a king-size Snicker bar every day and you decide to start eating those little ones that you get for Halloween instead, she said, that's progress.
Yeah.
That's a diet that's sustainable. You're making sustainable progress.
Right.
And I thought that was such a moment for my brain because it was like, that's true. You're lowering your caloric intake. And if you did that over time, it would have to make a difference, right?
Wouldn't it?
I mean, if we are consistent and make little changes over time and just stick with them consistently, we will see results. But I think that we're such a microwave mentality.
We are.
That
That's
we're like,
we're at in 2023, almost 2024 now. It's so scary.
because if it's not instant success in some things and other things, I think we know that it takes time.
Everything that's worthwhile, I feel like, Julie, takes time and it takes work. I don't care what it is. If it's worthwhile, I mean, really,
So true.
I can't think of anything that doesn't.
No, because like when you work out, I mean, Simon Sinek has this thing about consistency, and he talks to his friend. He says, okay, you go to the gym and you work out and nothing happens. And you come back and you go to the gym the next day, you work out, nothing happened. You decide like on day 3, I'm not going to do this anymore.
Well, I don't know. I made it to day 5 and it never worked. I've never once gotten sick.
And he's talking about, I used to set these plans when I would set up my, physical well-being plan. It would be like, okay, I'm going to do an hour and a half, 3 times a week. And it's going to transform my body in no time.
I'm going to do just any macros and micros.
It's going to be amazing. And then it's not sustainable.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh gosh, I failed and I'm done.
But if I say, I'm going to do so many steps, a day,
Get to the gym.
that's it. I mean, James Clear says, just become the person who shows up at the gym. And he tells this great story
So good.
about the guy who wanted to change his physical body. And he started by driving to the gym. He would drive to the parking lot, park in a slot, and then drive home. And when he did that per week, then he would go and open the door, and he would open the door of the gym, and then he would drive home. And he did that per week. And he became a person who goes to the gym every day.
Discipline.
And before he developed, any habit or started working on the habit or even assessing is this working? You want it to become a person who goes to the gym every day. And if you're not a person who goes to the gym every day, that's step one.
Just getting there.
Just getting there.
Yeah.
Because
identifying yourself.
there's a lot of habit in that. Getting your gym bag in the car, packing it the night before, getting up in time.
Yes.
Going to the gym every day, adjusting your schedule so that you can have time to drive to the gym before you go to work, even if you don't go in and work out. It's an adjustment to your schedule to drive to the gym every day.
I would be more upset getting there and then sitting there and be like, man, now I've spent this time. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure after that week, they're like, man, I'm ready to work out.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
I'm ready to work out. I want to really go do something.
When I get there, I want to do something.
But I think it's, we don't approach things like that.
No, but you know what? I'm thinking about something. I just had an aha moment. I had an aha moment as kids, we are so curious. We're so curious about what's happening because we don't know. Everything's brand new to us, right? So we're with our folks or whoever we're with, and we're like, this is brand new stuff. We're learning it, and so everything is it's right. It's so interesting. And as adults, we get so complacent, right? To where it's really about, I don't know, I think it's sad. We get to a place in our life where it's like, it's just not fun anymore. We lose the interest almost, and so if we can do little things like that, where it's putting some interest back, it's making us want that. It's making us want to drive. It's novel.
It's novel, and it makes us curious and excited. One of the things that the Michael Hyatt people have taught me in the Full Focus Planner is to, instead of writing SMART goals, writing SMART goals.
Yes.
And the ER that they add in is exciting and risky.
Oh.
And
ooh.
If goals are exciting and risky, sometimes we set goals like, I'm going to work out 3 times a week. Well, we're already working out 3 times a week.
I was going to say, get out of bed every day.
I'm going to get out of bed every day. We do that. I'm going to eat breakfast every day.
I take my coffee about 4,000 to 5,000 times. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not risky and it's not exciting. And so, of course, we lose our motivation. But I think that if we try to add that novelty in, like you said, sometimes it comes through weird things, like because he's just been allowed to just show up at the gym and he's held himself back from going in or working out. By the time he gets there, then he wants to.
It's like, man.
When you were talking about being a child, I think part of what I had an epiphany while you were talking about what's different as adults is we project what's happening next. Kids go at it fresh, like, this is going to happen.
They don't, no expectations.
But I've had 2 or 3 failures with my workout plan. So I just project that
expectations.
It's not going to work anyway. So then I lose all my motivation.
Wow.
Because my subconscious expectation is, I'm going to fail at this anyway.
Wow.
I failed last year. I failed the year before.
Wow.
I'm going to fail again. And as adults, we project that. It's like, that's being grown up, it's being realistic about what's going to happen next. And kids are like, let's see what happens next. I
want to know.
I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen next?
And I love it.
So I think that's the childlike piece that you're seeing is that we don't project what's happened before onto it.
No,
because we have a fresh experience.
Yes.
And if we would just let ourselves experience it in a fresh new way. And maybe it's going to a different gym. Maybe it's doing a whole different type of exercise.
Maybe it's getting out of that relationship.
Yeah, whatever it is to make it fresh so that it feels different to us.
Right.
Then we can approach it at least with integrity of, I don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
Instead of, I know how this is going to go.
Well, and honestly, we talk about this all the time, Julie, and it's one of my pillars, intentional mindset. If you are intentional with your mindset, no matter what you're doing, I don't care what it is, you're going to you can make that moment exactly like you want. If you practice it enough, you can. Any moment. You can go into any moment. And why we're not doing that more often, because it's a lot more fun for me, personally, going to some people with analytic expectations and let down if, because a lot of times that's what it is. If I go in expecting something good or bad, it doesn't 99.99999% of the time happen that exact way, no matter what it is. And so then I'm let down, good or bad. It's horrible. What are expectations doing for us besides hurting us?
Well, and I think managing your mindset makes you aware of at least how you're thinking about it. And if you're aware of how you're thinking about it, you can unpack those little pitfalls that you're going to wander into, like expecting that you're going to fail at a physical, plan because you failed before.
Right.
at least if you're trying to really manage your mindset and think about your thinking and be metacognition about your own thinking.
Yes.
And if you're doing that and trying to unpack it, you have a much more likelihood of finding those subconscious sabotagers, that subconsciously make us just be like, oh, I've been struggling with writing lately, like I've been telling you. And it's subconscious sabotage that, if I get the book finished, then what if it's not good? Or if I like something, what if it doesn't sound good?
Yeah.
If it, and all the what ifs just paralyze me from writing.
Right.
And it's funny because none of them are grounded in reality.
Yeah.
When I do write, and stuff that comes out has been good so far.
So good.
And it's come really rapidly. And once I get in the zone, I'm like, last night my husband got home and I'm like, I just have a little bit more ready to do. And about an hour and a half later, he's like, dinner is ready. Are you coming?
You're like, just a little bit longer.
And I'm like, let me just make notes to myself so I can pick up where I left off. Because when I get in the zone, it's going and going and going.
Yeah.
But all this subconscious stuff keeps me from even getting in, from even just starting.
Yeah. And I honestly think that, and I feel like the United States, especially, population is really living on maybe a par average. If you're grading us on how we're living our life, A plus being the pinnacle, F being dead, I guess, or horrible, like rock bottom. We're probably, I would say, at best C average, because of the fact that we've gotten so complacent and we've gotten so many expectations and we've gotten in this right now mindset, and I'm gonna have an instant gratification and microwave mindset, like you just talked about. When we can be functional about just our mindset, it's insane.
And there's seasons of your year that are heavier on certain areas, but when you look at a year in total, and that's where we got a start of coming racing
2024.
Right. And what can we do? We can look back and see, what did 2024 do for us? And I think we need to take, because we're getting kind of close to the end of where we need to be here on time, but I feel like we need to take 2024 and really reflect from here until January 1st, what was 2023 for us on that rubric?
What was 2023? Is what you're saying.
Did I say 20?
You said 24.
2023 for us. What was it? Reflect on.
Because I think that, part of Michael Hyatt's Your Best Year Ever is to look back at the year previous and glean the lessons that you can glean from that.
The good, the bad, the ugly,
Another John Maxwell thing. John Maxwell says that it's not experience that helps us grow. It's reflected experience. It's reflective or processed or whatever.
Okay.
It's when we evaluated experience that helps us grow.
That makes sense.
Because if you don't evaluate your experience and find the lessons pro and con, good and bad.
Well, because there's always some of both.
And I think you need to look for that when you're looking back at if all you see are like, oh, this was good, then you haven't found all the growth points that are in 2020
at all. Actually, you're probably shrinking.
Because we tend to grow more, respond more, and make better choices coming out of pain than we do coming out of just pleasure.
Yeah.
I mean, everything goes great. We're kind of like, I'm good. I'm good where I am.
You really don't grow much. The true growth comes from the hardest moments in your life.
Difficulty. It really does. I mean, when things are difficult, we're like, what do I need to do different? How do I need to approach this different?
Right.
I think that's when we get mindful.
It is.
About what we've done. And
that's really, I mean, honestly, without someone saying, hey, Julie, let's be mindful today. Let's do this. Like, you don't just do that when you're having great days. You get mindful when it's like, oh, this is hard. What's happening? What's going on? What can I do? That's when you start getting mindful. Think if you did that when things were good. Think if you got someone like you or someone like me when things were good and you're like, hey, how do I get to that trajectory like we talked about? How do we keep that trajectory on the up and up? It doesn't have to be a 100% gain every day, but as long as we're getting 1% better, it's a win. It's a win.